Oh boy.
And we're live.
Oh
Okay.
no.
Oh no.
Ruh-roh.
I wasn't ready. No.
I forgot to put my pants on. Oh boy.
And we're live. Oh. You want to start, Push?
Go on, Push.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I see we have like about 40 people here, so that's great. And we'll be talking about if leaks are good or bad for the video game community in general. We have a lot of things to actually discuss. But joining us today is Liam Robertson. He is
Hi.
He's a video game historian and researcher. He has regularly contributed to Unseen64, Nintendo Life, comicbook.com, and Did You Know Gaming. He has also documented a ton of lost and altered games. So I'm sure you guys are aware of him. And then joining from Source Game is Nintenjex. He's the video lead.
Hello.
And also Kawlun.
Hi, I'm here.
He's here. And of course me. So let's go ahead and just get this this hype train started. So let's go ahead and just give our general opinion on leaks. Like, coming into this, what do you think? Kawlun, do you want to start? What do you think leaks are good or bad?
A lot of the things I'm going to say are going to play into the other stuff we're going to be talking about later. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with leaks. I think they're perfectly fine. I think the real problem that a lot of people have comes from like leak culture. It seems like nowadays a lot of people are kind of rushing to be the first to get any kind of information on anything out the door. And it just seems like this mad dash to just, for whatever reason. But in the grand scheme of things, like, leaks have always been more or less pretty helpful, because it can either clue us in on information on certain things that we might not know about either until much later, or when the game comes out, or particularly in my fascination, hardware leaks I always find to be really helpful, because a lot of the time companies like to not release any information about what game consoles are actually running with. Like, I think we still don't know what the Wii U's GPU is. We know it's an AMD Radeon. That's it. That's all we know. So, yeah, I mean, I'll say more because we have a whole list of questions here, but I'm indifferent to them, basically.
Okay, and how about you, Nintenjex?
Yeah, I'm generally okay with leaks. For me, it's much more of a time-sensitive thing. I mean, I agree with Colin, I don't like the leak culture and everyone rushing to be the first one out, because that also generates all the fake leaks and everyone doing the mass clickbait across YouTube with all these obviously fake leaks that everyone buys into, and some people genuinely believe and then get upset when it's all completely bullshit. And it's that sort of stuff I dislike, but leaks themselves I'm generally fine with, as long as they're not like the day before or a week before. And I can understand why people want to do it. Some people are just curious and they don't care, and sharing it amongst themselves in a small group, fair enough. If that you do want to do that, you do you. But I always feel like a tinge of disappointment when it's like the day before something, and then suddenly everything about a game leaks, and it's just like, okay, like that just, I could have experienced that going in. I mean, it's like, so with Breath of the Wild, when I played that for the first time, I went into it like really blind, and I didn't look up any leaks about it or any rumors, and I tried to avoid any reviews, and I really enjoyed the exploration and the fun of that game. But then when you go into stuff like, well, I'm sure Smash will probably end up being, but like Pokemon, when Pokemon Sun and Moon was announced, everything was data mined like a good few weeks before it came out.
Yeah, from the demo.
And so everyone just knew basically everything that was going to be there. We knew what all the Pokemon were going to be. We knew who all the gym leaders were. We knew all of this stuff, and that just kind of, it helps for planning Pokemon teams, but it also ruins the fun of being like, oh my god, what's this Pokemon? I've never seen this before.
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff always sort of disappoints me.
Okay, and
Right.
Liam.
I have fairly mixed feelings about leaks in general. I think for the most part they can be fairly harmless and just a bit of fun. And I think a lot of the time they can be done for good reason. If they are outing poor company policies. Sorry if you can hear a plane going past in the background. There's a jet just went over my head. So yeah, anyway, yeah, I think sometimes they can be for the better when they're outing poor working conditions and that kind of thing. I don't think it's as important to leak things like, unannounced projects and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I think people, fanboys and corporatists and neoliberals greatly overvalue the impact that those kind of leaks have on a company. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you look at the damage you're doing to Reggie when he talks shit about leakers. Look at how upset he is. Do you think he gives a shit? He's a CEO. He's like the president of Nintendo of America. That guy is doing okay when he goes home to his 5 swimming pools or whatever. I don't think you're not hurting Reggie's bottom line. And I think most people who are working at Nintendo and stuff who have their games leaked are a bunch of middle class people. So maybe I'm just being a classist, but I think this idea that like leaks are ruining the lives of game developers is ridiculous. And also just one final thing I'd like to say is that people for some reason like to put the heat on leaks on like fans like me and writers who talk about these leaks, when in fact, the people who are actually responsible for them happening work at these companies that they are trying to defend. And it's not as if people like me go and look for these leaks. I never like go out there and like give me your information. I don't like go down on a wire into Nintendo headquarters and steal their documents or whatever. That's not how it works. 9 times out of 10, it is someone comes to a person like me or Emily Rogers or whatever, or a real journalist, like Laura Kate. It is a lot like almost always it is the case that someone from those companies goes to a writer and says, "Hey, here's this information because I like your work or whatever." So I think some like the blame does need to be redistributed to the people who are actually leaking this stuff, and not just like individuals like myself who are just like, not even earning that much money and are just, individuals who want to talk about this stuff because it's fun and we like doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely understand how, like, as a journalist, like, you're in a very tough position because if you don't report on the leaks, then you're not doing your job. Like, many people would argue that. And on the other hand, if you constantly leak stuff, then it kind of might impact like the actual title or might impact the community in some way.
Yeah, I think there is obviously a way to do it irresponsibly.
Yeah,
but I think that very rarely happens. I think if you are outing stuff like story details, like don't fucking do that. Or if you're outing stuff that like is spoiling the content of the game, I think that's a no-no. Or I don't like stuff like that. That's crossing the line for me, because I think if you are leaking stuff that is actively ruining the experience of the game somehow, then that is, don't do that. I think that's one of the few no-go areas for myself. If somebody like sent me the plot of Breath of the Wild or something, I wouldn't go and put that online, because that would actively ruin the experience for people. Whereas I don't think saying what a game is going to be about, like roughly like the general synopsis, talking about what features it'll have, I don't think like outing that stuff is as big of a deal, because it's just marketing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
and it's not going to negatively impact the experience of playing it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. There's a interesting thing that I think Jonathan Holmes said on our Twitter account was that kind of like hype culture is just junk food, and that he was arguing that leaks are always good because they kind of go against that hype culture and they kind of put people's perspective back where they should be, because like you mentioned, it's a lot of marketing, and that's
Yeah.
something that Mark Rosewater talked a lot about in a podcast. He's the head designer for Magic the Gathering.
Mhm.
There was a podcast that's I think it was Mantyke. He suggested that we listen to. So I listened to it a couple days ago. But Mark's Rosewater's argument for not leaking is basically like you're opening a Christmas present early, you're hurting sales, or it confuses customers and stuff like that.
No, I'm sorry. There's no legit evidence. There's never been any like studies done
Yeah.
to conclusively prove that leaks of that nature are hurting the bottom line. You know, there's
Mhm.
no evidence for that at all. That's totally just speculation. And
Mhm.
I would argue that generally there's probably no measurable difference. I think wider audiences don't give a shit and don't even
Mhm.
see these leaks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
So-
definitely agree.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any measurable impact that leaks have on a game's sales.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, I
that was
definitely agree.
something- Sorry.
I think that. Go ahead.
God damn it. That was something I was going to mention, because, I think a lot of people tend to kind of forget the perspective on who looks into, gaming news and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, your average Joe is not going to go, oh, Walmart Canada just leaked Rage 2. They're not going to realize it until Bethesda says it. But for us who are, always on Twitter and following, any of the 5 different Wario 64 or something, we're gonna be in on it.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think leaks can ruin a surprise, because I feel with situations like Mario and Rabbids, which I know, Liam, you're very familiar with, I think if it wasn't for the leak, the reception to that game would not be as warm as it was at E3 when they finally showed it off. Because that initial shock of Mario and Rabbids, really? That was already over.
Yeah, I don't like to, I don't. If I had said what you'd said, I'd sound very arrogant. But because I was responsible for writing about Mario plus Rabbids before they announced it, and I put that image out there of the title thing that they showed when Miyamoto came on the stage and that kind of thing. So, but I think that sometimes they can have a positive offshoot, as you say, and they can prepare people better for surprise announcements and that kind of thing. But
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not really sure generally how I feel. Announcements that aren't the surprise. I do think people overvalue that kind of thing. The video game marketing. I know. I don't have a problem with people getting happy about that stuff, but I do think people put a little too much stake in that kind of thing. I don't think it really matters that much. What matters at the end of the day is how do the games play. What is the experience of playing a game like? I don't think watching some marketing is as important as how the games play at the end of the day.
What was I gonna say? I think the thing that's offensive to me, though, and at least when it comes to because we're on the topic of hype and E3 and revealing things early, I think the thing that really gets me, the thing that really boils my goat, is the thing, because I was talking about how leak culture is a thing that I think is pissing off a lot of people, including myself, and because it's now you're having people come forward teasing leaks, and it's what's the point? Like, if you know the information, if your whole shtick is that, like, oh, I know everything that you don't, like, I'm gonna reveal it someday. It's like, if you're just gonna, like, at that point, I might as well just wait for Nintendo to tell me about Smash Brothers, because, like...
Yeah, I agree that there's definitely
Yeah.
there's definitely a right and wrong way to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it can come, if anyone does that, it can come off as sort of arrogant and a bit, kind of trying to wind people up, a bit teasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time when people do that, generally when they're talking about, like, I have said, like, given like little tidbits before I reveal an article or whatever and that kind of thing. And if that ever comes across as teasing, that is just me being enthusiastic. That is just me dying to tell you more about something that I can't yet because I'm still like putting the story together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm just dying to tell you about what Platinum is working on or something, but I can't yet because I need to get more sources together. I need to corroborate things, but I can't speak for people who don't do this professionally, who aren't writers, who are just people who want to tease things on Twitter. I do think that can come off as a bit more egregious. I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
Point.
I think the difference between you doing that and what others are doing is that we know that you will eventually release that information once it's ready, once you've planned everything. Whereas the example that we always go to with people teasing leaks was that Inklings in Smash for Wii U DLC rumor that cropped up in like October of 2015. And everyone and their mother apparently knew what it was. All these big YouTubers were saying, oh, I've heard this great Smash information, but none of them were willing to actually say what it was and just kept leading all their fans on and all that. And then in the end, it turned out to be complete bollocks.
Yeah, and I did see stuff like that from the same Smash YouTube crowd around about a week before E3. People were like teasing, oh, I know stuff that you don't know about Smash Brothers, and then, and then the real leaks started to come out behind the scenes. And I was like, this is what you guys don't know what you're talking about. This is very okay, yeah.
I remember also before this E3, because like the example that I was thinking of when I was talking about teasing leaks was there was some guy who's like, Xbox is gonna be green this year, and I'm like, no shit. Oh yeah, like let's see, Master Chief, Battletoads, the console itself. Like, like that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, I remember somebody was sharing a screenshot from Reset Era of some guy who'd like written like a haiku. And it was like a haiku.
That was it.
It was a haiku of Microsoft leaks or something, and it was like, why don't you just fucking say what you know? If you're gonna be doing that, like, what's the point? Why would you like give them like a puzzle box? Because it's obvious what you mean anyway.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of feels like they're sort of distancing themselves from any fallout if they're wrong.
Yeah, be as vague as possible, and no one can call you out when you're wrong because you can just
the old Marcus Sellers trick.
Get ready for. Oh, sorry.
Fake Smash, all these fake Smash leaks that have been picture leaks and word searches and crossword puzzles that people have been putting on 4chan.
Really?
I think that has been popping up more and more because they found out that people will talk more about it if they have to like make people work for it, and like fans will sit there and believe it if they have to like spend 5 minutes to decipher it.
Yeah,
and like it's just really dumb.
I did once consider doing something like this, but then I realized that's fucking stupid. I shouldn't do that. But I remember when I first got all the images of Mario plus Rabbids, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I like did some like real world shit and I printed off these pictures and just put them on a wall somewhere in like a big city and see if anyone notices these and thinks that they're like part of the Ubisoft viral marketing campaign? Wouldn't that be a fun thing to do? But in the end, I didn't do that.
It's God, I was gonna say something. I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it. Moving on. No, okay, now I remember. It's amazing that they do these puzzle box things because these usually reveal to be fake in themselves. I've noticed that like the more elaborate the leak, the absolute more bullshit it actually is. And that when someone just goes X and Y Z information, it's funny because everyone goes, oh yeah, that can't be true, and then ends up being totally true. Like last year, I remember there was I think right before the Switch came out, there was like rumor Rockstar Games is planning remaster of LA Noire for Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. And I said, that is the most random thing I have ever heard of. There is no possible way that's true. And it was, to my shock.
I think people who do have legit information just, don't have time for bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Don't have time to construct a breadcrumb trail of clues to the.
Answer me these riddles 3.
Plus, I think there's like less is more, right? Like the more information you give out, especially if you're leaking stuff, the more likely people are to be able to trace it back to you.
Yeah.
Like if you sit there and are like, oh, I work really closely with Sakurai as a designer, and I've seen these characters. It's like, well, okay, that really if this is true, that really narrows down who's actually leaking all this information. Then.
Yeah. I think the thing that I want to leave people with today is that you have to remember when like you see people getting mad at people like Emily Rogers, Tom Phillips, and all these people who write about leaks. You have to remember that almost always these people do not go and look for this information. It comes to them, and it comes from people at these companies who might have. Generally, I'd say they have a problem with working there. They don't like the company culture, the working conditions, and they want to put some information out there just to cause a bit of chaos. So I think that's what I want to leave people with, is to consider that, don't go after these individual writers. These companies who are like throwing shade at these writers, and their ire should be directed at their own people. It is their problem to sort out. It is not the problem of writers who have no they have no obligations to these companies. People like, how is Emily Rogers getting away? Because she doesn't have any obligations to these studios. She doesn't owe them anything. She can say whatever she wants. She doesn't owe Nintendo a thing. And for whatever reason, there's this perception that we must punish these people for outing video game marketing. It's just, these companies need to be more self-reflective and look at why this information is leaking out, because generally it is because these people have a problem with where they're working. Yeah.
I mean, like, also, like, one thing to consider is that, like, video game journalists should be separated from companies. Like, you should have an industry where it's healthy enough that video game journalists can report on actual video game news without being completely reliant on the companies.
I agree, yes. Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I would always support this type of writing, because I perpetually fear that we are getting too close to these companies, these corporations. I see a lot of video game writers and pundits and people who sort of review video games doing official events for these companies, for they're doing presentations for Square and Marvel, and on the one hand you have an audience that trusts your judgment and what you're going to say about certain games, and then on the other hand you are advertising them. I think we are getting to a point where people are starting to cross a line, and I'm not saying that there are individual writers doing that now who would deceive their audience and would be biased against giving a negative review if they'd work for that company. But I think it's a bad precedent to set. And at such a, this is a different discussion, I'm sorry, but at such a point, it could happen, right? You could get someone who is a bit corrupt and is, giving favorable reviews if they have worked at another company. And I think the game's media does need to be more strict about this kind of, shaking hands with all these corporations and that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, you already see like a close relationship with like how review keys are handed out as well.
Yeah.
Like certain news sites will get embargoes. Like, was it Kotaku? Like, they can't even get Bethesda games anymore because they report on leaks.
Yeah. And honestly, that is kind of a gray area. It is, those corporations, those companies can do whatever they want. It's within their right if they want to give them that. That's
very true.
But also, just fucking grow up. Someone at your company leaked that. They didn't, barge into your studio and take that information. Somebody at your company is responsible for that information getting out, not Kotaku. And if Kotaku hadn't written about it, then they would have just went to someone else and then they would have written about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that information was coming out anyway.
Yeah. That's the thing that people have got to understand. When you see someone writing about information, it's because someone's went and given them that. And, a lot of people like say to me sometimes, oh, why would you do that? You didn't need to do that. It's like, well, if I didn't, then somebody else would have. That's how this works. Somebody wants that information out there, and they'll give it to as many people as they want to before it gets out and is legitimized.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've heard about that happening a lot. Like, I can't say too much about this, but I know there's one instance with a game where its roster was kind of leaked, and the person just went shopping around to like a bunch of people and like leaking the same information until it eventually went public.
Yeah. But I do think there is a right and a wrong way to do these things when it comes to leaks. I'm working on a video right now where it just so happens that basically a whole project was shut down because of leaks. So I can't talk too much about what that was, but that is like my next video will focus on that, and it is. That it in rare instances, very early on, that can happen if you are irresponsible and you put information out there that is so sensitive that it rocks the boat and a company pulls out of a deal. If you are doing that, then you are literally taking money out of people's mouths, and that is something. Like, there are some projects at Sega and Capcom, for instance, that I'm aware of that are in pre-production. And I want to go and write about them, but I can't because I know there's a little chance that maybe Capcom is going to pull out of that deal if they know that the information they're sharing isn't confidential. So I think people have got to be very careful about sharing information about games that are super early. Think that's another no-go area for me when it comes to ethics and leaking or whatever.
Yeah, because when it starts directly damaging the people who work at these companies, who are just trying to do their job, that becomes far more than just it's fine. It's just a little leak. It's like not really.
Luckily, it seems to be the case that those things are very isolated incidents. And most leaks tend to come like later on in production when marketing material is being made and that kind of thing. So
that's too far.
Yeah. So luckily, leaks that damage companies in measurable ways are very, very rare. And none of the big websites are really responsible for any of those that I know of. So those are very isolated incidents, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Colin, do you have something to add?
I was gonna say, because I'm looking at some of these questions, and I think one thing that should be made clear to a lot of people is that leaks and rumors are not mutually exclusive, but they're basically synonymous. Because anything can change during development or anything, and certain bits of information can turn out to be totally bogus. I know Push knows one that I'm very privy to, which is why the hell was everyone saying the Switch had analog triggers? That that was something I remember. That was just something that I was like, I hope it does. And then a whole bunch of you know, the real popular ones were like, oh yeah, the Switch has analog triggers, and I went, good, thanks, I'll keep that in mind. And then the Switch came out, and it wasn't the case.
I think it was because I honestly never heard anything about analog triggers or anything like that. I think there was just a general assumption that there would be, because Nintendo was at an earlier point working on some form of virtual console GameCube support for the Switch. And I know that is like a big old rumor, but I do feel pretty strongly that was true, because I did hear that from the same people who told me about the NES Mini, the SNES Mini. So I do think that was true. It just, for whatever reason, hasn't materialized. I think Nintendo's online plans changed quite drastically from what they were earlier on. I think we can divine that purely from the schedule that they've put themselves on, because they've delayed it like 500 times now, and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to come out. But
well, I think the problem with that, this is pure speculation on my part, but from what I remember, Nintendo asked 2 years ago the Cyanogen mod people to make the OS for the Switch, and they straight up declined. And I remember very early rumors about the NX saying that were surprisingly accurate to at least saying it was running on NVIDIA mobile hardware, was saying it was running on some form of Android. And I wonder if they had a whole bunch of software planned for this like proprietary Android-based OS, and they went, just throw something together in a year, because that's what the OS's 1.0 on the Switch feels like. Was we just gotta get something done.
Yeah, it is very barren. It definitely gives off that feeling of
it's still that way.
Yeah,
it's still that way. This doesn't the Switch main menu UI it's not even full HD. I think.
Yeah, it's 720.
It's like what the hell is going on there?
But then I mean, another one that definitely comes to mind, because we have here discuss if leaks are opening like a Christmas present early, which I mean we've been kind of going back and forth between a few of these questions here. There needs to be like a threshold for when leaking something early is even like has a point. Like Laura Kate Dale, I remember, was like, "Oh, Dark Souls Remastered is going to be announced in 4 hours," and I'm like, "It's 4 hours? Like, just wait it out." Like, I wasn't like, "Oh no, it's ruined." I'm just like, "That's why."
I think in that case, like Laura Kate Dale, because she got so much like hate for that. Like, I think like she announced like announced it beforehand, and then people were like, "Oh, you're just making up stuff," and so I don't know for sure. I don't understand, her mentality going into that 100%.
Well, in that particular case, I know that Laura worked very hard to get that story together, and it just has to be the timing that Nintendo was doing their presentation like later that day, and she'd been working on that days before, and she didn't know that Nintendo was going to do like a presentation as she was researching that stuff. So I think that was just a case of unfortunate timing.
I mean, I do know that. Well, I do remember it saying something like, "Oh, Dark Souls Remastered will be announced later today." Not directly referencing the Nintendo Direct, but at least like, "Oh yeah, it's happening so soon."
It's just like, I know some people like get upset about that stuff, but she's not beholden to Nintendo at all,
Yeah.
and she can write about this stuff if they want to. And frankly, I think people just get too upset about this stuff. If all you want is to be like drip fed PR stuff, go sign up for a Nintendo newsletter and get off Twitter. Like, stop following Nintendo news sites that are going to cover this stuff,
Yeah.
and just go by Nintendo's website. If that's what you really want, go make that reality for yourself. But the rest of the world would like to talk about this stuff, so go away. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, like, I've always been the type of person to go actively seek out spoilers for my favorite shows. Like when I was watching 24 back in the day, I was always going and spoiling myself.
Why?
Yeah, I hate that so much.
I personally, I just want to know as soon as possible, because then I appreciated how the presentation was.
Yeah, you needed to soak up the lore of 24.
Yeah.
I was in line for GTA 5, and I opened up a certain image board, the Chans as I like to call them, and there's a big old GTA 5 leak, and I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, and then I posted it on my Facebook. It was like, hey, check this out. Because I'm a terrible human being. I had like 2 people block me, but I don't know, I just thought it was hilarious.
See, people like get mad about like video game marketing leaks, but this is the hill I will die on. I don't like story spoilers and that kind of thing. Like, fuck off with that. Fuck off with that, because that actively alters my enjoyment in a negative way. If I have like story revelations spoiled for me and that kind of thing,
well,
I think that's a whole different kettle of fish.
I'm a big weirdo who thinks that spoilers don't matter as long as they're still, like, when the plot twist happens and the thing you're enjoying, it's still, like, done really well.
Yeah, same.
Like, for example, everyone complains about, like, oh, spoiled the end and whatever. Man, like, the ending of, like, Empire Strikes Back is, like, the big spoiler of Empire Strikes Back is, like, pop culture. Like, you can't walk 5 seconds. You can't mention Star Wars without someone going, Luke, I'm your father. And it's like, oh, but that's like that's like the bow on the package of that movie. But
or Arius and Final Fantasy.
But if you go back and you watch episode 5, you're like, oh wow, it still sends like chills down your spine because it's just done so well.
I mean, there's like a certain time that it shouldn't be like Empire Strikes Back came out ages ago, but if I was like waiting in line to go see Empire Strikes Back and someone said that as they walked past, I think I'd be pretty fucked off. Regardless of how well it's done. I mean, I've had stuff spoiled for me like this a lot. A friend of mine accidentally spoiled the end of A Brother, A Tale of Two Sons to me because he thought I'd beaten the game when I was only like at chapter 2. And I just couldn't play it after that because I was like, oh, okay, well, I was playing this for the plot and now I know what's going to happen. I feel like there's no point in me continuing this anymore now. I may as well just move on to something else. And it sucks because I was enjoying the story up to that point.
Yeah, I hate this kind of thing. And I'm just like thinking about it, and I bet the Venn diagram of people who like posted Star Wars spoilers on Miiverse and people who also like complain about people ruining the surprise of Nintendo Directs, I bet the Venn diagram is like an exact circle because it's just a big bubble of idiots who are like, hey, you ruined the Direct for me.
Oh man, I loved the Han Solo dies Christmas cards that were coming out.
I did not see those.
Those were, oh man. It's funny. It's terrible, but it's funny to me for some reason. But I guess like, do we want to talk about fake leaks? Can we talk about something fun? Can we talk about?
Let's talk about the impact of fake leaks on the community because that was another question we had. And fake leaks are something I'm so sick of. Because it's like there's like 5 or 6 every single day, and they're always so bad or really over-explained or clearly something that would never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was that? What's the Yoshi and Yoshi's Flipping Island or something like that?
Yeah,
His
that one just wouldn't die, would it? That was like everyone was talking about
Flippin'
Yoshi. Yeah.
There's something so fun though about fake leaks. There's just something so magical and whimsical about reading something that you know is total and utter bullshit. Like earlier this year in January, there was a leak on the Chans, and me and a friend were at MagFest, and we like stopped what we were doing and sat down to read it, and it was. I swear to God, if I say this and then Liam goes like, "Uh-oh, I hate to break it to you," but like there was this horrible fake sounding rumor about how it's like, oh, the Switch doesn't have enough RAM for voice chat and Pokemon, so they're gonna make a Switch system with more RAM that actually has voice chat in it, and everyone who owns the old model will have to use the smartphone app. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, there's no possible way that it's true, but I don't know. I thought it was hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. I have heard like certain things about the whole voice chat situation, and part of it, from what I understand, is due to power restrictions, I guess you could say, but also there was a whole like other side to that story that people don't really know about, and I think Nintendo was concerned about violating FCC regulations or something to do with accessibility features on the machine, and yeah, that's a whole other subject.
I always thought it was because they wanted to at some point I figured they were trying to figure out a way to get also game audio through, just so you could use the smartphone app as like a wireless headset, but that's not the case.
I wish they could do that. That would be cool. Because I really don't like how there's no audio input on the Pro Controller.
Yeah.
When you're playing, that was one of the best things about the Wii U, was being able to plug your headphones into the gamepad in certain games, and get
use
the audio
the built-in
from
microphone
TV.
for voice chat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
for like the couple games that used it.
Yeah, like Black
Ops
too.
Like Smash.
Yeah. What were we talking about again? Fake leaks.
Yeah,
fake leaks. Yes.
Let's
like
talk about...
every so often.
One bad thing about fake leaks is that it kind of raises everyone's expectations to like an unrealistic level. Like, look how many people were pissed off at EA for not announcing like Madden and stuff like that after Marcus said that there would be a Madden on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, EA just got a ton of hate comments because they didn't announce something that they had no plans to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I was one negative effect of the whole fake leak culture is that real leaks that people attempt to put out there are often overshadowed by all of the nonsense, because people are so understandably skeptical and cynical and jaded that when somebody posts, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would post like legit information on 4chan, because it's just like a fart in a hurricane. You know, it's just like why would you go there? Like go to Jason Schreier or something like that. You know, if you have real information, someone who can corroborate it and legitimize it. But anyway, some people do choose to do that for whatever reason, and there's always you see after a game's been announced, someone will find like a leak from like several months ago where somebody tried to tell everyone. I remember I think it was like 2014 or something like that, or 2015, when it leaked that Mercury Steam was doing a Metroid game, and I did my article about it. About a month before, after I'd done my article, I went onto 4chan, and I was just like, somebody sent me a link to 4chan, I think was what happened. And somebody from Mercury Steam had tried to leak that exact thing, like months this was about 3 years before they announced Samus Returns, and somebody was on there like, "Oh yeah, Mercury Steam is trying to do like a Metroid 3DS game," and everyone was like, "Oh fuck off, you liar," and that kind of thing. It's like that happens all the time, and there's not really any way to avoid that, I don't think, with 4chan. But it does suck that people are so skeptical of this stuff now, because people, for whatever reason, there are so many people who make these fake leaks.
I think if anything, the amount of like fake leaks compared, like the ratio between fake leaks and real leaks, especially on something like V, if anything, like I think that leads into the whole, you know, people are like, oh no, it's ruining the surprise of a Nintendo Direct. Well, not if you don't know which one's real or not. Because that's, you know, like before any E3, there's gonna be like 20 posts of like what each conference is going to be, and you know, one of them will have something that might be right, the other, you know, 20 will be like total BS. So it's like this, like, I don't know if I'd say it's a fun guessing game, but at least it's like kind of enjoyable to see what people make up and just to kind of like fool people. I think that's the thing. I think when it comes to fake leaks, there's like two categories. There's like misleading ones, and then there's just like, I'm trying to think of a better word for the second category, but like
one that's like semi-believable,
yeah,
or one that the community latches onto, like the Tower Smash leaks.
Like ludicrous and misleading, basically, I think is the best way of putting it.
Do you remember those? Do you remember there was some suggestions that there was a Star Fox and Metroid crossover at one point?
Yeah, I remember that. That one got reported on as well by places.
People that like really ran with that one.
Because the funny thing is that some of the more outrageous, like, clearly this person is trying to get a rise and let people believe this. It's funny how some of them will actually have overlap with announcements that are completely unrelated, but somehow still the same thing. There was one leak before the Switch came out that was like, here's a whole bunch of eShop games that are going to be released for 2017, and one of them, who, Push, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, just making sure.
I just knocked my keyboard over.
Too many beers.
Well, yeah, one too many beers. Literally one.
One.
But
it's a big one.
But I remember during this leak, there's at one point they said, "Oh, a game that's going to be announced for the eShop is Doom Arcade, which was going to be Doom 2016, but just the Snap Map mode for like $20 on the eShop." And my friends and I thought it was the funniest thing. And then somehow, ironically, Doom ended up being ported to the Switch, sans the Snap Map mode.
Yeah.
That's looking back at some and finding the humor in them. I feel like there are some fake leaks that have the issue of they say a bunch of things and then one thing turns out to be right, and everyone latches onto them and you start seeing them everywhere. The most recent example I can think of was the Link's Awakening 3DS, Wario Land 3DS leaks, where they also mentioned a WarioWare game, but they specifically say the WarioWare for 3DS isn't going to be coming out this year, and then there's one for Switch. Wario Land will be first, and no, we actually got WarioWare instead, which just came out yesterday, in fact. And it's like, because that one turned out to be true, everyone started thinking, oh, well, the other two must be true then. And now these, like, almost every week you get a Link's Awakening, another Nintendo Direct rumor with Link's Awakening and Wario Land appearing in it.
There's this one that just will not die, and it's about Diddy Kong Racing 2.
Oh,
yeah.
That seems to come up like every year. It just will not die. It's like the zombie rumor.
I love that rumor.
Yeah, like every time we hear like about Retro's doing, And we start to hear rumors that they had a game that might have been cancelled or faced some kind of development troubles. And people are now like, oh, could that be Diddy Kong Racing 2? Like people are trying to retrofit the Diddy Kong Racing 2 thing into everything they hear about retro now. It's like, guys, that rumor's like 6 years old. Just maybe let it go.
Yeah.
I mean,
People are very passionate for Diddy Kong Racing.
the easiest way to make people believe you're fake leak is to lump in a bunch of information that's just bound to be true anyway. Like that's the Marcus Sellers Reddit method, where to make
Nintendo
people
will announce a Mario game some point
exactly
this year.
to make people
Call of
believe
Duty
that
is going to have online and HD Rumble.
there you go. Like to make people believe that Black Ops 4 is coming to the Switch, you got to shove in like, oh yeah, hello. My sources tell me Hello Neighbor's coming to the Switch. Like that wasn't going to happen.
Also, that was leaked before he said.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Have you ever attempted to get him on here, to talk to him?
Marcus. Should have had him on for this live stream.
He blocked me.
I'm convinced Marcus is a child. I don't mean that in a demeaning sense.
But actually under the age of 18.
Yeah, I think he is probably only about 15 or 16 years old, and he's just taking everyone for a ride. And he's just some little kid who wanted some attention and wanted to fuck with people and wanted to develop an online following. I'd be very surprised if he is our age, because he doesn't act like it, and he doesn't podcast, or he doesn't do anything like what we do. He doesn't appear with his voice or whatever. So I think Marcus could be a bit of a catfish situation, where he's a bit of a squeaker if we actually heard him talk. But who knows? That's my conspiracy theory about Marcus Sellers.
I bet 6 years ago he was like, "Yeah, my dad owns the Project Cafe." Yeah, I got 5 Nintendo World Championships. But it's funny. Marcus is kind of going through his brown period right now, because it used to be, 5 months ago, be like, Marcus, when's the Nintendo Direct? And he'd be like, next week, I got the source, or something like that. But now you go on his incredibly sad Discord server, and it's like, Marcus, when's the next Direct? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, speaking of direct rumors, I'm so sick of them as well.
Yeah.
There's been 6 directs this week, right? According to the rumors.
Yeah.
I mean, that was basically the first half of this year, was every single person saying, oh, there's going to be a Direct next week, and at some point, you're bound to be right.
Yeah. Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day.
What someone should do is create a calendar of fake direct leaks, and see how many days are covered in a whole year, and just write the origin of each leak, and I bet you could fill at least half the year with this nonsense.
Yeah.
There were more fake directs in 2018 than directs in their entire life.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, at some point, anyone can just follow the pattern of information being released and figure out when something's gonna happen. I don't know how anyone in their right mind could possibly think Nintendo would do a Direct either right after E3 or the month after E3. That just doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah, I think if you look at the history, they've only done a mini Direct at the in August or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense though. An August Direct though makes sense, because it's
it's 2 months after.
They still have to announce TUI, and that's coming out in September in Japan. I doubt they're gonna do a September Direct again like last year and be like, oh yeah, it's out in a week.
Yeah, I think with people assuming there was going to be a Direct this month is a matter of like the fans' perception versus Nintendo's perception of itself. Like the fans are like, where are all the games? Where's Animal Crossing? And Nintendo's like, what are you talking about? We did a great job at E3. You know, I think they're pretty proud of themselves, and they don't think there's any problem. Whereas the fans are still hungry for more.
Where's the new games? What are you talking about? We just released Daemon X Machina. Yeah, but I want an Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it is like that. I mean, with WarioWare at just now, that's obviously what all their focus was on. Now is the time to do a direct, because I feel like the next game that they've got in the pipeline is actually the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like early September.
I mean,
So they don't have anything else, which is time to. Now is the time to bring out a direct and start going on about.
I think we are probably gonna get like a direct like next month. This is mostly speculation, but I do think we are probably gonna get one next month, and they're gonna announce some more stuff for the next few months.
Yeah.
I do think they have some like ports sitting around that they haven't announced yet.
Yeah.
That I keep hearing about, and there is, you know, there's reason to believe like there's stuff sitting around that's pretty much done that inexplicably wasn't at E3, and I don't know the game plan. I really don't know what they're doing, but it is very strange when you look at the calendar, and there's not what is the next big Switch game from now on? Like I know there's the Xenoblade DLC, but what about like what's the next big new release, like first party wise?
A Super Mario Party, I think.
Yeah, in October.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Jesus.
There's just one to have now, because Octopath Traveler just came out, and Captain Toad came out this month, and WarioWare is now out. So that was their like 3 big games for the summer.
Yeah,
I could probably write up what the next Nintendo Direct is going to be. It's going to be the 2E remix release date. It's going to be the Dark Souls remaster release date. It's going to be maybe these some I'm not going to explicitly say, but a port of a Wii game and a port of a Wii U game, and then just probably some other third-party stuff that people, we're just expecting.
Yeah, some third parties that we're just waiting for release dates for, that, or just will get announced, smaller ones that will get announced and are coming out.
Like there was
in September.
There was a direct leak yesterday. Well, that wasn't really a direct leak. It was just like some guys like, basically some guy spit some information on GameFAQs and was like, oh, the direct is gonna have XYZ, and they were like, oh yeah, it's gonna have like the Smash menu in it, and it's just like, okay.
Oh boy, they're gonna announce the UI
but it's also like, why would that be in an August Direct and not in like a self-included Smash Direct? Like, I figure the next Direct will have another reveal, but it's like,
it'll have a newcomer reveal at the beginning or end, but that'll be it.
We're gonna get a Smash Direct, because of course there's going to be a Smash Direct, and it's gonna be in like November.
Yeah. That's basically, because that's what that easily plots out when their announcements will be. August Direct, then Smash Direct, and then if there just happens to be another Nintendo Direct before Smash, then sure, do it there as well. And that's like perfectly fine, and they don't have to just randomly drop one on a Tuesday or something. But
I mean, honestly, I this is getting really off topic, but I think the idea that like everything has to be announced at the Nintendo Direct is kind of dumb. I kind of just wish that like people would just announce whatever, whenever.
I mean, Labo Kit 3 was just randomly announced the other day. But I feel like their mobile games will probably just be announced randomly. They announced
Labo outside of a Nintendo Direct as well.
Yeah,
like, Labo had its own Direct because it kind of doesn't cater to like the core Nintendo audience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that the Nintendo Directs should be used more to highlight things that Nintendo fans might not have otherwise paid attention to.
Yeah.
Which is why I really like the indie Directs. And I do find it very weird when like Nintendo fans like watch the indie directs and they're like, "What? You didn't announce Shovel Knight's going to be in Smash Brothers? Why did I even watch this?" But it does get people to pay attention to some really cool games that, for whatever reason, there are a lot of people that just ignore and just for whatever it just will not open their minds to the idea of these smaller games. But yeah, I do like it when Nintendo highlights some of that smaller stuff.
Yeah, that was like a big thing during E3 where there was not a lot of Switch games announced before the Direct, and then people were like, "Oh yeah, because they're saving them." Like, "Oh yeah, like they didn't announce Fallout 4 for the Switch because they're gonna do it at the Direct." And it's like, why would they do it at the Direct and not at the Bethesda conference where they're advertising other Switch releases that they're doing?
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, that ended up being not true either.
Yeah. It's more like, they announced Soul Calibur 6 for every system, but they'll announce the Switch one later, because of course.
Yeah.
Same with
I don't,
Spyro.
Yeah.
I don't like this precedent that Nintendo has set for itself, where they announce the Switch versions later, because a lot of the time that's really annoying. Because I remember when they announced like Black Ops 4, and then they didn't announce the Switch version, everyone was like, well, I guess Nintendo's going to announce the Switch version in the Direct, and they obviously didn't. So when a Switch version doesn't get announced of a new game now, a lot of people are like, the conspiracy crew are like, oh, Nintendo's totally going to announce it themselves.
There's a Direct next week, and they're going to drop the same trailer we all watched.
Yeah.
Except with a fat Switch logo at the end. Mark my words.
Yeah. No, it's just annoying because everyone starts going off, and then also if I want to get the Switch version of a game, I have no idea if it's actually a thing that's coming. It's like if Dragon Ball FighterZ had been announced for the Switch alongside the other versions, I might have waited for the Switch version, but as it wasn't, I've already picked it up on PS4. I'm not going to pick it up the Switch now.
Yeah,
it wasn't in development.
That one I more understand. That one I understand. I mean, if a game is announced later for the Switch and they come out on the same day, then I'm just going to be a bit like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
but
I do think it's very. Yeah, I was going to mention Spyro. It is very weird what they're doing with that, because I remember the first time I heard about that Spyro remaster was happening, I heard about Switch in with those other consoles, and it's kind of like, I'm starting to formulate my own theories about why they might be doing that, and I've started to my slightly cynical idea about why they might not have announced the Switch version is because I think perhaps they are hoping that people will double dip if they don't announce a Switch version. Because I think Crash on the Switch has done so well that maybe Activision is just sort of cynically biding their time, so they get the Xbox and the PS4 versions out, and then perhaps people will double dip for the portability, because I know some people certainly will. But yeah, that is my slightly silly theory about why they might be holding back, because otherwise I don't understand.
I think the reason is because the one guy who did the Crash port was busy with the Crash port. They needed him to free up space so he could... That magical man, John Carmack 2.0, can port Spyro 1, 2, and 3 to the Switch. But man, that's gotta be like a death sentence for some games. Like, I remember when they announced Doom and Wolfenstein 2, and I nearly melted onto the Nintendo New York floor. Because I was like, oh, that's the hypest shit I've ever heard. Which, by the way, right after, some guy who has industry connections leaned over to me and said, yeah, I didn't want to tell you. He knew. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks, dude. But, like, man, like, I've heard that Wolfenstein 2 on Switch is selling worse than, like, the PC version, and that just doesn't surprise me because, like, the game came out, and it's like a 6 hour...
It's not just that. It is the second part of a story.
Yeah.
And most people, everyone buying that game will be people who likely didn't play it on the other systems. There'll be people who are, Nintendo only gamers who want to want a bit of Wolfenstein, and the fact that they didn't port what's the original?
Yeah, New Order.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't port that is very weird because that would have been a much easier game to put on there.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like a not only is it a sequel, but it's also like this 6-hour like mediocre at best game that is now being released nearly a year after the fact that the game came out, and it's like $60, while every other version's like, I don't know, $5. Because it just nay-nayed into the bargain bin as quickly as possible.
It's very strange when I see companies doing this, because I remember a New Order like does have some like small like things you can alter in the story yourself, like you can choose who dies at certain points, and it's very strange that they wouldn't package them as one. Put the two together, and they did the same. Ubisoft did the same with the South Park games.
Because I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. They didn't release Stick of Truth, and I think that is really bad because in Fractured But Whole, I'm not sure if any of you have played like those two games, but the Fractured But Whole very heavily references the events of Stick of Truth, and you will not get basically the climax of that story will not make any sense to you if you've not played Stick of Truth.
Well, this is the weird thing about it, because they have actually announced Stick of Truth for Switch now.
Yeah.
Why not announce it at the same time? Like, fine, it's a download only, but if I remember correctly, when Fractured But Whole came out on the other systems, if you got it on day one, it also came with Stick of Truth. In the package as one thing for free. And this one, they're not only both separately, but they announced the second game first. And the first one's going to be download only.
Yeah,
but I'm not even sure is the first one releasing before the second one. I'm not actually sure when these release.
Out. Yeah, the second one's been out.
Oh, is it already out on Switch?
That's kind of my point. They released the first one a couple of months ago, and they released the second one a couple of months ago, and they're releasing the original in September. So, like, what the fuck?
It's like, why?
It's like releasing a series of books out of order or something. It's strange.
I think Ubisoft done goofed by oh man, of all the AAA games they make that they're gonna port to the Switch, the one they announce is Steep. Like this game that came out like like nearly a year before the Switch comes out, and everyone gave a nice solid 5 out of 10.
That isn't happening. There's no way that's coming.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't just try to repackage like either an old Assassin's Creed or like Watch Dogs.
Yeah. They were too focused on getting Just Dance on the Wii.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Should have put Watch Dogs 2 on there. Because Watch Dogs 2 is actually kind of good.
Yeah, no, I that's what I was actually kind of hoping that they would put Watch Dogs 2 on the Switch, because it's reasonable.
What other recent Ubisoft games have been good? I don't know.
Could you imagine if they put Siege at like a locked 30 FPS on the Switch?
Yeah, that might be a bit difficult. I'm trying to think though, like which good Ubisoft games have been. I didn't like Far Cry 5. That was a bunch of crap.
They could have
just put Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, just put Rogue or
put one of them. Yeah.
I'm surprised when like Xbox 360, PS3 re-releases and remasters are announced for the other two consoles, but not the Switch. You would think, like it's a 360 game. Like what, like why isn't Far Cry 3 Classic on the Switch? That would have
right.
Why isn't the Ezio trilogy on the Switch?
Yeah.
And the Devil May Cry trilogy is another one that bothers me a bit.
Yeah, I think that is just more to do with when that DMC collection was in development. It was before Capcom was. This is what I hear is that, because I did ask about this, and from what I understand, it was just like the timelines were weird, and they finished the DMC collection before Capcom was really ready to dive in and invest in some Switch games. and now we are going to start to see some more like ports.
Yeah, we're gonna see cloud versions.
Yeah. Well, like I mean, like proper ones that they're looking at. I know they have looked at the Hunter World port. I don't think it will happen, but I know they have they've sort of tested the waters for that, and there are a couple of other ones like Resident Evil stuff that they've looked at bringing over. Non-cloud versions, like actual ports.
I mean, that's the thing. Just like bring. I mean, as much as it's the Switch is the port machine. Yeah, just bring over the entire back catalog of like most companies' games. If it ran on a 360 or earlier, it'll be perfectly fine, if not better.
I just really want Beautiful Joe.
Yeah,
that's all I want.
Like, Beautiful Joe collection would be pretty good. I want to see Kingdom Hearts, all of the ones, but I mean, 3, fair enough, probably won't run on the Switch, but the others should.
That reminds
no reason
me
why the others can't.
Nathan, that reminds me of a fake leak. Going back on topic, I think I told you about this one too. There was a rumor that Nintendo was really upset that Kingdom Hearts 3 wasn't coming to the Switch. So they were gonna hire Monolith to team up with Warner Brothers to do an ARPG starring the Looney Tunes.
Oh God.
It's like the single best worst idea ever. I want it to be real.
I can still remember when people were petitioning for Kingdom Hearts 3 to be on the Wii U. Like there was a whole campaign around that. Like that game has been in development that long that people really did think there was a chance of that happening.
I mean, I want more ports on the Switch. Like, as terrible as it is, because it's like, oh, it's no new games. But like, let me tell you, when one of those awful Marcus things popped up and they said GTA 5, I was like, yeah, I'd buy GTA 5 on Switch. It'll just be the 360 version with first person mode. I know that much, but it works, you know.
Yeah, they really should port some Rockstar stuff. Like GTA 5 would do gangbusters, or maybe like maybe do Red Dead, because that's never been on. Red Dead has never been on a Nintendo machine.
Just port every PS2 game that everyone likes that's been ported to everything else already. Just, RE4, San Andreas, and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Just,
Give us Metal Gear HD Collection, give us Bully, give us Kingdom Hearts.
Remake Metal Gear Solid 3D for the Switch.
Yeah, that was fake leaks, yeah? They suck.
Yeah.
So, are there any other questions that we haven't actually answered yet from our list?
From our list, I think we're pretty much finished.
Did we do the junk food one, or did we kind of
like the first thing
we talked
about?
Kind of. We talked a little bit about that.
Because you just kind of start doing these out of order.
Yeah, that's okay. We're going with the flow.
Well, all these questions kind of tie into each other. Like, you can't really separate like leaks into like, oh, the early ones or the right information or hype, because it's like it all kind of. There's so many cases that are just like blends of 2 or 3 of the thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just put Metal Gear 5, The Phantom Pain on the Nintendo Switch. For the next 3 hours, it's just going to be the 4 of us talking about video games that came out 3 plus years ago that should be on the Switch. Fellas, when's Bullet Witch coming to the Switch?
Give me Katamari Damacy.
Devil's Third, Tokyo Mirage.
Yeah, I was going to say Devil's Third.
Yeah, Geist.
Oh, give me! I would take Geist on the Switch.
I fucking wouldn't. I mean, maybe if the frame rate was a bit better, but
just improve the controls of the shooting part a little bit. I genuinely love Geist as a game.
Oh, did you watch my stream?
I didn't. I haven't actually watched your stream, but me and my friends at uni played through the whole game because I got it.
Watch the last 50 minutes to see me go into 0 out of 10. I'm actually not having fun mode.
For me, if they just improved the shooting controls and I guess the frame rate, I think it could be a very good game. I think the possession stuff is really clever in that game.
When you're like running down hallways and you're just like blasting dudes with submachine guns and lobbing grenades infinitely, like that's really fun. But when you're doing like the absolute worst boss battles of all time,
Oh yeah,
it's
the bosses are a bit shit.
It's like, oh no, like that one in the last part of the game that I played on that stream that I spent like 40 minutes on is this boss battle that I think was like genuinely one of the worst boss fights in a video game I've ever played. It's so bad.
Do you remember which one it was?
It's the one where you the trick is you have to like walk up towards this Half-Life tentacle monster in the middle of the screen, and he like swings at you and you have to move back because he doesn't take damage unless he has his hands up.
Is it like in the big Is it like in the center of a big circular room? Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that one.
It's terrible.
That one does suck. Anyway, yeah. I guess if we're done talking about League,
we should just wrap this up.
Not go into a Geist discussion.
The only reason why I'm bringing up Geist is because we accidentally left Geist as the game we're playing on this discussion.
We're going to make it relevant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot to change that.
But yeah, okay. I reckon we're probably done here.
Yeah.
So Liam, do you have any final thoughts about leaks?
Not really. I see people in the chat are arguing about whether the Wonderful 101 is good, and it is good.
Yeah, it is good.
It has one of the best like end games of any game ever. It is so good. Anyway, I don't really have that many ending thoughts. I guess just stop attacking writers on Twitter for writing about leaked information, because it's not their fault that it's out there, and they are not beholden to these companies. They can talk about whatever they want, because we do not live in a fascist society owned by corporations. Oh wait, we kind of do, but not quite to the extent that they think. But anyway, yeah.
Honestly, just go on Twitter. Just go on Twitter and put leak in your muted words if you hate it so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
What I did, which has improved my life considerably, is muted the word Sonic, which it really, really does help Twitter a lot.
See.
Push, you should do that.
Yeah.
You work for Sonic Team, don't you?
No, actually, I don't get those comments anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
What
They realized you got fired after Sonic Forces came out.
Liam, do you know about this? Like, I was getting messages like every week. Like, people were asking me for information about Sonic Forces because they thought I worked on the game.
Why?
Because I translate some information, like some Famitsu information or some Twitter stuff, and I would translate it, and then people would message me like for weeks and weeks, like different people too, be like, "So, is this character going to be in Sonic Forces, or can you tell me about this?" Or, and I was just like, "I'm not working on the game," and they're like, "Okay, but can you add this character in?"
Yeah, I remember back in the day, like several years ago, Nintendo Life would often get questions from people being like, "How do I set up my Wii U?" Like they thought they thought they were some kind of like like actual Nintendo service. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I guess thank you for coming on, Liam.
No problem.
Yeah, so in the description for this live stream, we have links to all of our social media, except for Nintenjax, because I forgot to add him.
That's pretty good.
So please go ahead and check out, we have our Patreon, we have Liam's Patreon, we have all of our Twitter links, so please go ahead and check that out. You can also check out Nintenjax. I'll paste his link to it.
Someone in the chat is saying keep the politics down, and I just want to sign off by saying eat the rich, Fuck you.
Oh no.
Oh
No,
no!
I'm
That
just
same
kidding.
note,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Not fuck you, but we should, but we not fuck you, but we should eat the rich. We should.
I was gonna say I only have 3 muted words or terms on Twitter, and that's Kafifi, Sam Hyde, and the hammer and sickle emoji.
Cool.
Can't have any of those on my feed. Oh.
All right, fun discussion.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
if you guys like this discussion, then let us know what kind of discussions you'd like to see from us in the future.
Nay on that
'Cause I'm
like
hoping-
button.
Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know if you like this format of doing it live rather than pre-recorded,
Yeah.
because we'd be more open to doing more of them if that's actually something people are interested in. So let us know.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
Eat
See
the
ya.
rich.
Oh my god. Toodles.
Banned.